It is a pleasure to be here with you today. I am Paula Gaviria Betancourt, the UN Special Rapporteur on the Human Rights of Internally Displaced Persons, and I am honored to chair this event. Thank you all for being here. This week, we are celebrating the 27th anniversary on the guiding principles on internal displacement. And I would like to thank UNHCR for convening this event today with me. In place since 1998, the guiding principles are a landmark document that outline the rights and guarantees relevant to the protection of internally displaced persons. They also confirm the primary responsibility of national authorities for protecting and assisting those under their control. We convene at a unique and challenging moment in the history of addressing internal displacement, where a fundamental global shift is taking place. Contemporary armed conflicts are increasingly marked by a disregard for international humanitarian and human rights law. Humanitarian principles are being tested more and more, pushing the limits of the international system to protect civilians. Increasing political polarization and fragmentation hampers global cooperation. And the international aid system is undergoing significant reorientation due to substantial funding reductions, compounded by already decreasing humanitarian assistance. And while the challenges are many and they keep on appearing and rising, we must not lose sight of how far we have come and actions that we can take. So I'm therefore excited to welcome a remarkable and distinguished group of panelists for a concrete discussion on actions we can take further to implement the guiding principles on internal displacement. One such action that we can take, and it's easy to take, is to make room at the table to listen and learn from internally displaced persons and their experiences. So I am particularly pleased to welcome two internally displaced community leaders, one from Iraq and the other one from Honduras, who are joining the panel today. This event also serves as the launch of our report on strengthening the participation of internally displaced persons, based on a two-day workshop with 12 internally displaced leaders from around the world that we convened together with McGill University and the IDP Protection Expert Group with UNHCR, that UNHCR and I co-lead with the support of the Global Protection Cluster. So for today's event, we will first have a short video remark from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi. We will then have our panel discussion, followed by an opportunity for you all to put forward questions and comments. And finally, we will have closing remarks from the former Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General on Responsibility to Protect and Director of McGill University School of Public Policy, Dr. Jennifer Welsh. Let us now begin with a short message from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. While he could not be here today, he was keen to offer this video, these messages, and his appreciation for today's important commemoration.
I'm very pleased to be part of the commemorations marking 27 years of the guiding principles on internal displacement and to launch the new IDP participation report with McGill University. Thank you to the Special Rapporteur on the Human Rights of Internally Displaced People, Paula Gaviria Betancourt, for convening us for this important event, and all those participating. As we gather today, more people are displaced within their own countries as a result of conflict, violence, human rights violations, and disasters than ever before. For many, forced displacement has lasted decades. Humanitarian and development systems are put to the test. So now, more than ever, it is important for all of us to reaffirm our commitment to tackling the challenges of internal displacement. UNHCR strongly supported the establishment of the guiding principle, I remember, in 1998, and has since worked tirelessly with states and partners for their concrete application and to ensure protection and solutions to those in need. By the way, as one of the co-champions for solutions to internal displacement, alongside colleagues in IOM and UNDP, and with the great support of Paula, the Emergency Relief Coordinator and the Assistant Secretary General for Peacebuilding Support, we reaffirm our commitment to working with all of you to seek lasting solutions for them. Let us all be inspired by the letter and spirit of the guiding principles. They restate the rules governing the protection of internally displaced people in all phases of their displacement and provide a foundation for pursuing solutions while placing human rights and meaningful participation of internally displaced people at the center. We cannot achieve solutions without the engagement of those actually impacted by displacement. We must continue supporting government-led efforts, acting collectively, and doing better at delivering protections and solutions that leave no one behind. The guiding principles remain as relevant today as they were in 1998, and when implemented, have the potential, the real potential, to improve millions of lives. Thank you.
It's very, very important message. And I echo definitely his call and encourage us all to be part, to do our part to ensure the human rights of the internally displaced persons are upheld. And I hope this seminar today will encourage us all to do so. So we are now ready to begin our panel discussion. We are going to start with a few housekeeping reminders. Your microphone should be automatically muted. So as we move in the discussion, we ask you to please put your question in the chat box so we can unmute you when you speak. We're going to hear first interventions from pre-registered speakers that when registering for the event ask for interventions. And we welcome you all, as I said, to ask questions directed to any of the speakers present here today. We will now move to our panel discussion. I am very, very excited to welcome our guests for this portion of the event. As I said, following this part, we will have a space for comments and questions. So we're going to make it as dynamic as possible. So I'm going to ask our speakers when you receive questions to respond very briefly and concise so we can go back and forth in the conversation. So it's my honor now to welcome Professor Walter Kaling, one of the key drafters of the guiding principles on internal displacement. And Professor Kaling was the representative of the Secretary General on the human rights of internally displaced persons from 2004 to 2010. And he has since remained highly engaged and influential on internal displacement. So Professor Kaling, welcome to this important commemoration. One question for you. The guiding principles on internal displacement emphasize that special efforts should be made to ensure full participation of the internally displaced persons in the planning, the management of their return, their resettlement, their integration. But in your view of the national laws and policies that you have been studying for so long relating to internal displacement, what do you see in these frameworks? What do you see that these frameworks say about the participation of the internally displaced persons? The floor is yours, Mr. Kaling.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for your very warm welcome. Well, unfortunately, they don't say too much. I've been looking at a large number of existing laws, policies, strategies. About half of them do not mention participation. The other half talks about participation, but usually it's a very general mention. And if they do that, then normally in the context of solutions and not for participation during the humanitarian phase. And very, very few instruments really talk about effective tools to allowing IDPs to participate. But one has to say that more recent instruments, like the last 10 years, are a bit more sophisticated. To me, the question is, why is it that? Well, when we were drafting the guiding principles, we were struggling exactly with this because we only wanted to restate existing international law and not really create new law. And human rights law, when it comes to participation, yes, there's a right to vote, to stand for elections, to take part in the conduct of public affairs directly or through freely chosen representatives. But that's not about what can I do as an IDP to participate in the running, for instance, of an IDP site. And that's why the language of the guiding principles is not talking about rights, it's efforts, it's non-discrimination. Kampala Convention allow to participate. So international law, that's the first reason, unfortunately is rather weak. Not totally absent, but weak. But the second reason, and I think that's even more important, is, and let me be a bit provocative, it's a humanitarian system. Humanitarians talk about IDPs being beneficiaries. But if you look at IDPs as people who benefit from the generosity of humanitarian actors, the idea of genuine participation certainly is not at the forefront of your mind. Now, humanitarians have understood that. And I think an important step has been the introduction of the concept of called, again, an acronym, AAP, accountability to affected persons. That's good. That's great. But let's be very, very honest. Humanitarian agencies and NGOs, INGOs, local NGOs, they are not accountable to what they call beneficiaries. Ultimately, they are accountable to donors. And participation of IDPs, it's really a wall. If IDPs want and do things that are not part of the project, that are not part of the program, that are not part of the mandate. And I think to really change approaches and build on the real participation of IDPs, we need quite a lot of rethinking. And I'm so happy that you decided to choose participation as a topic for this commemoration, because that's one area where we really have to work hard to make progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kaling. It's always a pleasure to learn from your insights and for sharing what national frameworks say and mainly do not say, and for sharing that there's been more effort and more sophistication, I would say, in the recent frameworks developed, and for encouraging us to rethink how we can make participation real and meaningful, which is an obsession of the mandate, mostly in these times when we really need to hear and listen to the internally displaced persons' voices, ideas, and proposals. So let us turn to our panelists with specific experiences of participation as internally displaced persons themselves. So I want to turn first to Iraq, and I'd like to welcome Veen Farkat, an internally displaced youth leader in Iraq. She was first displaced in 2006 and then again in 2014. She completed her education in IDP schools and is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in pharmacy and dreaming and asking herself many questions about her future. Since 2017, she has been assisting internally displaced families with registration, and she currently mobilizes youth through a UNHCR and Terre des Hommes program. So, Ms. Farkat, welcome. You have participated in numerous initiatives as an internally displaced person, and you have helped others raise their voices and participate. Can you share one example with us today of the participation of internally displaced persons in Iraq that you think other countries and participants in this event today can learn from? thank you, Vin, for being here.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks, Paula, for introducing me. So due to time limitation, I will try to make it as short as possible. Basically, as an IDP from Iraq, I have seen both the pain of displacement and the power of inclusion. An example where the guiding principles have a positive impact on IDPs was during the efforts by humanitarian actors and local authorities in Mosul government to support returnees and this still displayed after the conflict with ISIS. These principles served as a critical reference for ensuring that IDPs were not forced to return to unsafe areas, and that aid reached to the camps and informal settlement. And organizations like UNHCR and IOM used these principles to advocate for voluntary, safe, and dignified return, and to prevent any forced deportation. But still, we must admit the challenge. We have still challenge remain. So my recommendation to global decision makers is simple. Place the IDPs at the center of the decision that affect their lives. That means strengthening the participation of IDP in policy making, not only consultation. Second, ensuring accountability when the principles are violated. And lastly, investing in sustainable solutions like education, livelihood, and mental health support so that IDPs are not getting stuck. So before concluding, I would like to say that only when our voices are heard and respected can durable solution become a reality. The guiding principles give us a roadmap. Now we need a global and national leaders to follow it with IDPs at the table. Thank you. Thanks again, Paula, for giving me this chance to reflect the Iraqi situation briefly.
No, thank you, Vin. It's always a pleasure to hear your ideas, your passion, and thank you for all the work that you do and the importance to see the guiding principles in practice. Um, how important it is to stress that safety, the voluntariness, and the dignified returns as a choice as well, amongst the other choices, and how to place IDPs at the center of the decisions that affect their lives. This is not only consultation, and this cry that you've been giving and many others for many years to listen to you, to listen to your voices, mainly now that we're working on this process of work, of stressing out the importance of solutions. You are the ones that know what the best solutions is for you and your communities. So thank you, Vin, once again. So in addition to sharing good practices that we just heard from Vin, we know it is also important to share challenges and how they were overcome. So we will travel from Iraq now to Honduras, and we will turn to Nestor Hernandez. He's an activist and a human rights defender in Honduras. Mr. Hernandez co-founded and is the director of Asociación Honduras Diversa, an LGBTIQ plus organization led by displaced persons in Honduras. He's also a co-founder and director of the Consejo Nacional de Juventudes Hondureñas, a consortium of 73 youth organizations strengthening the impact of young people in the Honduran politics and society. So Mr. Hernandez will be presenting in Spanish. So please, for you, those of you who need interpretation, is now working and you can access with the instruction that are in the chat. Nestor, Mr. Hernandez, while the guiding principles call for the participation of internally displaced persons in processes that affect them, we have shared with you in different occasions all the challenges that internally displaced persons can face. So can you share one main obstacle for the participation of internally displaced people, particularly in the context that you work at in Honduras, and how it was overcome. Thank you, Nestor.
Thank you very much, Paula. Well, Honduras has made great progress in the protection of IDPs. As you know, in 2022, the law on prevention, attention, and protection of internal displacement in the country was approved. This was a great achievement. However, progress in their implementation has been limited, and still a lot has to be done. Also, even though there has been progress in the regulation of this law, it has not been approved yet, so this affects the materialization of the protection and the vindication of rights. And in my opinion, this is a lack of real commitment to to internal displaced people. Even though the law contemplates the active participation of IDPs, so far it has not we have no real space that guarantees that participation. This represents, no doubt, an obstacle because without the voice of IDPs directly affected by the violence, state efforts have no legitimacy and effectiveness. It's particularly concerning the situation of LGBTIQ displaced young people who face structural multiple barriers to participate, from generalized hatred, sex hate, gender identity hate, and this institutional and community discrimination. From Honduras Diversa, we have triggered strategies that articulate mental health, citizenship, participation, and political incidents through the program Voluntariado Diverso, that provides tools for people to have a participation in local policies and national policies. An example of this, we created in 2023 the LGBTIQ legislative agenda, which is a recommendation instrument for the state of Honduras to establish specific legal frameworks on the prevention and protection of against violence for LGBT people, accompanied by direct, binding, and safe participation mechanisms. In December 2024, we participated in a workshop in Montreal organized by the McGill University. This was a space for to speak about our participation strategy and to visualize the specific needs that organizations like us have. The workshop stressed the urgent need to foster significant participation, inclusive participation of all IDPs, guaranteeing protection to the leaders of IDPs, access to information and technical support to contribute to the decision-making process. We also stressed the importance of creating indicators and participative data recollection methods, and also to generate safe conditions for participation, including mental health, the overcoming of linguistic barriers, and the barriers of access to funding for IDP organizations. We also made several recommendations, and we recommended the proposal of a mechanism for a collaborative mechanism. And I would like to wrap up that today and always we are going to, that we can do nothing for IDPs without IDPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Nestor, very, very much, and for all the work that you do. I've had the opportunity to listen to the great efforts and real changes that you have promoted in Honduras, and for sharing how difficult it is to participate and how important laws are, like the one in Honduras, but mostly implementation of those frameworks that give really the conditions and set out the conditions for the IDPs to be part of those decision-making processes that affect their lives, as being reminded us. And thank you also for a very important message today in the commemoration of the guiding principles about nothing for displaced people without displaced people. This is, of course, a global message, but we have to make it real and concrete in the different contexts that the IDPs live in. So thank you very, very much once again, you and Bean, for being here. And now with this country level Zoom, we're going to zoom out to the international level. And I'm very pleased to welcome Ms. Ugoche Daniels, IOM's Deputy Director General for Operations, to this panel discussion. She's been in this position since 2021 and has done really a great work since then. She was Chief of Staff at the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, UN Resident Coordinator in Iran, and Chief of Humanitarian and Fragile Context Branch at the UN Population Fund, UNFPA. So, Ms. Daniels, it's a pleasure to have you here today. And for you, as we're going through a time of unprecedented changes in the humanitarian system and beyond. But at the same time, there is a momentum on internal displacement generated over the past years that I know you share this, we must leverage. So given your extensive experience in the humanitarian system, how can we keep IDPs on the international agenda in this time of change in the international aid system? The floor is yours, Hugo.
Thank you very much, Paula. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joined online. It's really inspiring to have heard the two country-level speakers from the ground, and it's a real honor for me to be part of this distinguished panel. So, of course, just a few introductory remarks. We know that today's an important reminder that the effort to reform and improve on the topic of internal displacement is a long one. And within the UN, supporting governments to prevent, to respond, and solve internal displacement, it's a collective responsibility. No single agency can do this alone, and we have to maximize cooperation and coordination. What's really important, and at the end of the day, and having heard from the two speakers before me, what's really important is protection, welfare, and the dignity of millions of people. The guiding principles reaffirm that human rights must be upheld during displacement. And protection must be a cornerstone of our work, and IDPs have to be involved in the decisions that affect their lives. So how are we going to support governments in achieving this? How are we going to work together? How are we going to keep IDPs on the agenda? So we've come a long way since 2019. And the former special advisor, Robert Piper, a special advisor to the SG on solutions to displacement, a dear friend and colleague for many of us, made significant inroads with a new approach to reduce protracted internal displacement for millions of individuals and the communities who are affected. So one, we now have greater visibility on internal displacement, and 6 heads of UN agencies who've come together as champions to ensure this visibility continues. And Paula, you're one of the 6 who's among the champions. So fantastic that you're moderating this panel today. We have new solution strategies that member states themselves have put in place, and their commitment to support 11.7 million IDPs on pathways to solutions in Central African Republic, Colombia, Ethiopia, Iraq, Libya, Mozambique, Nigeria, and Somalia. Third, the UN is in a very different place. We've agreed on a system-wide approach to internal displacement and a new global coordination model. Fourth, this approach brings together actors across the nexus to advance government leadership. We heard Walter speaking about government leadership in the opening. The whole crux of this new coordination model really rests on government leadership to promote a more substantive role for the development finance community and to continue reforming how the UN system works together. We now have an interagency solutions hub that's at the global level to provide support and advise resident coordinators and UN country teams at the country level. And there's a global solutions working group that brings together the operational capacity of the UN, of IFIs and NGO partners to ensure that countries have the expert advice and support that they need. And there's a joint guidance on solutions, the first of its kind, endorsed by both the ISC, that's the humanitarian family, and the UN SDG, the UN Sustainable Development Family, that really cements this new way of working and provides guidance and support to countries. Paula, you had spoken about the challenges. This is a time of change and challenge in the international system. However, I would argue, and I have been arguing this, that the work to drive solutions to internal displacement is even more important now than ever in these challenging times, because it brings together humanitarian actors, peace actors, development actors from day one in a predictable partnership that prioritizes transitions out of protracted displacement to sustainable solutions. So for this year, we want to demonstrate the value and efficiency of collaborating across the UN system. We're bringing these priorities on the solutions agenda into the ongoing discussions on the humanitarian reset, on the UN 80, and we are prioritizing aid resourcing overall. Most important of all, we return to the fundamental principle. This is about the dignity of 75 million people. The populations affected by displacement are the most valuable resource in driving solutions. We just heard them speaking. Working with them, empowering them to participate in decisions and galvanizing their agency is critical. It's the best way for us to carry the guiding principles forward. So on behalf of IOM, who's convening the solutions group this year, on behalf of the agencies that have come together to support this agenda, I thank you for this opportunity. I reaffirm our commitment, and I close with reminding all of us that it's not the challenge that's important. It's our resolve to overcome it and make a difference in the lives of people who are seeking what we all seek: a life of dignity, a life of peace, a life of opportunity. Thank you. Back to you, Paula.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. It's always very inspiring to listen to you. You always give us hope. You give me a lot of hope. Thank you very much. And indeed, we must continue working together, and we must do better. Thank you for reminding us that human rights and protection are a cornerstone of what we do. Also for the update, I think it's very important that today we give this update to everyone that's listening to us about this new approach with greater visibility for the internally displaced persons and their rights and their needs, with the creation of this Champions for Solutions group that we're advocating for this to be in the international agenda. And I think the call here today is that we are all champions for solutions, and that the IDP themselves are the first champions of their own solutions. Thank you for sharing all the support that we continue giving to the different countries after the special advisors' very impactful and important work about this new global coordination model that rests on government leadership, as the guiding principles state, and the more involvement of the development actors, the creation of these new structures that are ongoing and working, the joint guidance on solutions for the whole UN, and this message about in times of challenges, we need to have demonstrative examples on how to progress towards solutions is key. And the reminder that this is about the dignity of the 76 million people to galvanize their agency is the best way to put the guiding principles in practice. Our resolve is the most important. We cannot paralyze in times of crisis and challenges, and resolve to seek for internally displaced persons what we all want, their life of dignity and opportunity. So thank you again very much. We must try to do better to support governments in their leadership on this issue. So I want to turn now on this note, to Nigeria. We have the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives in Nigeria, who's leading the efforts to advance the bill on internal displacement and to domesticate the African Union Convention on the Protection and Assistance to Internally Displaced Persons, the Kampala Convention. So I am very pleased to invite Honorable Dr. Benjamin Kalu to join our discussion today. He made a lot of efforts to be here. Thank you very much for making the time. Dr. Kalu, as you know, and we have discussed the guiding principles on internal displacement and the African Union Convention on Protection and Assistance to the Internally Displaced Persons emphasize the primary role of the states to protect and assist their displaced citizens and residents. So can you share with us today how you have been encouraging in a very strategic way, I would say, the national responsibility and the ownership of this issue, including through advancing national legislation in Nigeria? Thank you, Mr. Kalu, for your words, please.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be one of the panelists in this discussion, and I'm humbled to make my contribution about what legislative activities and legislative perspectives that we have on this particular issue, especially with regards to concrete steps that have been taken by my country in addressing the challenges of internally displaced people. And I want to say that our country, Nigeria, believes so much in these principles, the 30 principles, but the ones that are on the front burner for us as we activate issues around the internally displaced people are the principle one, which is protection from arbitrary displacement, principle three, the protection during this displacement, principle 10, on the right to know the fate and whereabouts of relative, and then 28, which is the right to return or to be resettled. These are the front ones on the front burner. Not that we don't believe in other ones, we believe in all of them. But as you know, that these principles form the bedrock, the foundation for the Kampala Convention. And so our target is to make sure that these principles become alive in our country by making sure that Kampala Convention, which we have rectified, will actually be domesticated in our laws in the country. And Nigeria, after rectifying it, leaving it as it is not enough. The next step is to make sure that it is domesticated. And to do that, we have taken it upon ourselves. Personally, I propose the enactment into our laws and sponsor it in the House of Representatives because I believe in the potency of those principles. And it can only be active in Nigeria if it is made to be part of our laws, especially as it concerns arbitrary displacement, upholding human rights of these internally displaced people, and then working in partnership with organizations like you to make sure that they are well taken care of. So what steps have we taken? We have taken a legislative journey. I proposed the bill, and which had been approved by the House of Representatives, and this bill has moved to the Senate. The Senate has actually done a report. The Senate report is now ready for consideration of report. This report will be done on the 28th or 29th of April once we resume from recess for it to go into consideration of report, and then there's what we call the two houses the concurrence of the two houses on that particular bill. This will be done immediately we resume, and after that, the National Assembly clerk will be taking it to the president within 7 days for the president to assent to it. It is important that takes place because it is only when it becomes part of our laws that we'll begin to actually activate some of the elements of that principle. But having said that, the executive on their part have taken some steps to make sure that the life and of the people in this internally displaced people, that their lives are being taken care of through what we call the development of national policy on IDPs. And this has been done to make sure that activities around the IDPs is governed by a framework. And this particular effort also did not end there. The country has, through legislative intervention, has provided for what we call the establishment of a commission for the protection and rehabilitation of IDPs. We call it NCFRMI. As a result of a bill that we passed in 2022, this particular commission has come into place. And what is the objective of the commission? The objective of the commission is to serve as an institutional framework to coordinate resettlement, to handle rehabilitation, and also to look at livelihood restoration initiative for communities affected by the conflict or the displacement. And not only establishing the commission, we must commend, has taken steps to make sure that the objectives of the establishment of the commission that they are achieved. Recently, we have two examples, which we call the KEFI example and the Kano State example, which demonstrate concrete progress in the resettlement and the livelihood of these displaced persons. It is important to know that the effort that have been carried out by this commission has been targeted towards integrating the affected communities into sustainable economic activities and has provided a blueprint for nationwide rehabilitation approach. What is happening here is that the NCFRMI has established what we call the resettlement city and has used that resettlement city in KEFI to absorb almost 300 internally displaced people. And not only that, they have also handed over in the last few days 40 brand new homes to 40 households of the affected, relocated population. And the chairman or the commissioner of this particular commission is promising that more will be done in the coming days. This means that the government is in support of making sure that the lives and the livelihood of the people who are among these IDPs are well taken care of. You see, for them to participate in the issues affecting their welfare, the laws must be domesticated. And once the laws are domesticated, the elements that affect their participation will be highlighted. And that is why we are pushing hard and through partnership and collaborations with local organizations, various MDAs and organizations, international organizations like yours, we are getting the right energy to push for this domestication to take place as soon as possible. But the government must be commended that even without the domestication of this particular Kampala Convention, steps are being taken through national policy on IDPs, through all these efforts of the Commission to make sure that the life of the people who are affected by this conflict and other displacement, that they are taken care of more than it used to be before now. And we believe that with sustained collaboration, there will be enhanced capacity to implement first the Kampala Convention, and secondly to mobilize technical support to enhance this implementation when it comes, and also ensuring that the interventions that the country will make will be a comprehensive and context-specific interventions within this space. Now, going forward, the question becomes, after the Kampala Convention, what next? Once the domestication has been done, implementation need to be, even at the state level. There are efforts to set up mechanisms for the state government. You know, we run a federal government, you have the federal, the national, and also we have the state. So if the law becomes part of our legal framework, what happens at the state level? You know, the states are also meant to adopt it into their state laws. So there are mechanisms that have been put in place to make sure that beyond becoming a federal law, that most of the states will make it part of their laws. There is this conversation that has been going on that beyond this implementation, the root causes of conflict, how do we handle that beyond these IDPs? I have led a conversation at the IPU recently on setting up a model for post-conflict, sustainable peace framework, so that there will be no repeat. We don't want those that we have handled as IDPs to go back to IDP camps after that. So, which means the root causes, the conflict, something must be done to make sure that there is no repeat. And I'm happy that it is UNDP that says there is no development without peace, and there is no peace without development. So, which means while we handle the IDP issues, it is important to look at the sociological issues that gave birth to these conflicts, that gave birth to this displacement, and find a way to handle them ahead of time so that there will be no repeat. That is by setting up framework that will, give a lasting, sustainable peace for those who are affected in this conflict. So these are some of the efforts we've been making. I'm sorry, I just flew in and jet lagged, from Nigeria to Australia, where I'm speaking from now. And I hope I've been able to make sense in some of the work that we are doing. But importantly, let me mention that this commission and their work in Kefi and Kano is like a blueprint for the whole country in our efforts to, help the IDP issues across the nation. They have done well with that commission, and sustainable partnership, strategic partnership with organizations like yours, I'm sure is going to enhance that while we push for this domestication to happen in no distance time. Thank you very much.
No, Dr. Kalu, thank you. Thank you for taking the time and making the effort to connect from Australia. I think it was very, very important to have you and for sharing the importance of having a sponsor in the House of Representatives pushing forward this bill to address internal displacement with this vision of a whole of government and a whole of society approach, which is the only way to work on solutions and protection for internally displaced persons. So very good to hear your commitment to bring the guiding principles into life and domestication of the Kampala Convention, but the message around the ratification of the Kampala is not enough. Long legislative journey, as you mentioned, requires a champion, and your sponsorship on this bill has been crucial. But also the messages around what happens next, and I think that question is very important, and the question around prevention. We don't speak a lot about prevention. How about the importance of addressing root causes of non-recurrence of displacements and the causes that gave the place for these situations to happen. So I'm very happy that you're also working on those. And I do think, I reiterate, it's not only a blueprint for the work that you're doing there, but it's also a very good example for other countries that can learn from your experience. And I think everyone here in this conversation today, we are all looking forward to seeing the progress once you resume the work of the Congress now. So thank you very much. So moving from Nigeria, we're going to go to Mozambique. We're going to turn now to Mr. Edo Stork. He's the UNDP resident representative in Mozambique. He's been there since 2023. He has 20 years of experience in the United Nations, in Angola, Peru, Honduras, Trinidad and Tobago, and Fiji. And he also has experience with the International Development Agency of the Netherlands. So, Mr. Stork, welcome. And I wanted to hear from you the work that UNDP has done. UNDP has actively supported governments, as we also heard from Nigeria, in their leadership on solutions to internal displacement. So what is in your view, what is the role of those actors at the subnational, the local, the municipal authorities to support solution strategies? And can you share from your own experience an example of this work in Mozambique? Thank you, Mr. Stork.
Gaviria, Special Rapporteur on Human Rights on IDPs, and also for UNHCR for organizing this event. Very exciting for me. I think I'm one of the last speakers, so I'll try to keep it a little bit dynamic and short and snappy. First of all, I want to refer to the guiding principles. The concept of what is called sovereignty as responsibility is a very important one, particularly also one in Mozambique, because these internationally displaced people or persons, they are citizens or residents of their own countries. And therefore, helping them and to acquire solutions for them, they require strong national leadership, inclusive planning, and long-term investment to help people regain self-reliance and rebuild lives in dignity. So in my few words, I will go into that also a little bit as well as Ms. Gaviria was asking at the local level. But first, some pieces of information. So at the end of 2023, in Mozambique, there were more than 700,000 IDPs, and that is actually still the case. I don't know if you can see it, but this is the booklet that was published by the government, and then you can see a map of Mozambique where you see most of them, of these displaced people, they are in the north, in a province called Cabo Delgado, but there are also significant numbers actually in the center of the country, in the area around Beira, one of the largest cities in Mozambique. And the good news is that already more than 600,000 internally displaced people have found some solutions, have returned, have gone to a new place. But we are basically still left with more than 700,000 to deal with, together with the government and all our partners, right? It's sort of like a washing machine, because we help the displaced people, and the country helps the displaced people, but we are also getting in new cyclones. So just this year, we had 3 cyclones in the north of Mozambique, creating more displaced people. So on the one hand, we're trying to sort of help a whole bunch of displaced people, but on the other side, continuously displaced people keep on coming in. So the government has just published earlier this month, this is the strategy, the national strategy of Mozambique to help displaced people. It's written in Portuguese. So I won't say it in Portuguese because there's no translation, although it's a bit similar to Spanish. And so, but what is so interesting also of this action plan is that it has 4 pillars. So one pillar is prevention and mitigation for getting more displaced people. Then secondly, you have work done on preparedness and getting ready. The third one is to respond to these the displaced people, which is a lot what we've been talking on so far. And 4 is also that angle of like long-term reconstruction and recovery and being resilient as a country at the national, but also very much at the local level. So local authorities are absolutely crucial to translate these strategies into solutions on the ground, because I just showed you the map. You can see that a lot of the displaced people, for example, in Mozambique, they're in the northern part of Mozambique. So that almost screams out for like a local approach. The country itself has a limited level of decentralization that is happening. But what we have done, both by the International Organization for Migration, the UNHCR, the United Nations Agency for Refugees, and UNDP, the 3 of us are co-leading together with the government, with the organization called INGD, which is the Disaster Response Agency of Mozambique, this effort. And the government is therefore, we have set up at the Cabo Delgado level, in the provincial level in the north, a working group, working with the local authorities and they are co-leading that working group to make sure that when we implement actions, and that could be any of the 3 leading agencies or other UN agencies or other partners or donors, you name it, or the government itself, actions so that they connect to that strategic plan. And then we also have a national working group, also co-led with the government, together with IOM and UNHCR and UNDP, to make sure that we can actually see that the numbers, more than 700,000 displaced people, should be going down as a result of the actions of the implementation of this plan. So let me give you an example in this case of what UNDP is doing more concretely, although there's many others that are also doing other initiatives such as IOM and UNHCR. And so in northern Mozambique, we have 2 causes of displacement. I just told you about the 3 cyclones, but there's also an ongoing conflict with an insurgency going on in the country. And so buildings have been destroyed by the insurgency, and people have sort of displaced themselves. So this is quite a challenge. And so what we have done as a UNDP in our UNDP stabilization program, with the support of the European Union, Germany, the Netherlands, Japan, UNDP funds, and we also have the African Development Bank now incoming, we do three things. So we help to sort of establish a sense of security in the areas that were affected by the insurgency in this case. Secondly, we help to quickly rehabilitate public infrastructure. So you should think about schools and clinics and other infrastructure that the internally displaced people need to set their base up and to come back home quickly and to feel safe. And thirdly, to also help them with some skills and some livelihoods to sort of gain some income in the short term so their family can settle again and sort of move forward. So it's about security, building up back that public infrastructure quickly, and livelihood. Speed is of the essence. We really try to do this very fast. And it can be quite a challenge because the conflict still is ongoing. So there's still things happening while we are working in that particular area. So that is the example I wanted to give. In closing, I wanted to say that UNDP, we remain firmly committed, but actually it's a team effort as a UN, working alongside UNHCR, IOM, you, Paula, is the special rapporteur, and all the agencies that we have here in the solutions. But like I said in the beginning of my presentation, the national ownership, working at the national level, involving the government of Mozambique, and involving also at the local level through our team together with the government, making sure that we are making progress connected to that national plan. So you could consider maybe IOM and UNHCR, as they are more connected to humanitarian work, as the first line responders. And then we as UNDP are trying to add value in terms of our broader development mandate and trusted partnership with the government to sort of look for more sustainable solutions moving forward to the future. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stork, and thank you for reminding us the core principles of the guiding principles, the sovereignty as responsibility, IDPs as citizens and residents, and the importance of including IDPs in national systems needs a strong leadership, national leadership, investment, planning, and all of the UN system working together. You also mentioned the struggles that this country in particular, but many others face of disasters and repeated displacement amidst protracted displacement in the different parts of the country, and the ongoing conflict in the north, which is a challenge not only for Mozambique. And I am particularly very glad to hear that the National Solution Strategy is in place. I had a mission to Mozambique in 2022, and there's a lot of progress that I see here with the 4 pillars on prevention, preparedness, response, long-term recovery at both national and local levels. I'm very pleased to learn that local and national mechanisms have been established where authorities co-lead with the UN agencies to implement this recent solution strategy. And thank you for the concrete examples. I saw these examples in practice of the work that you do that focus on the 3 areas of security, rebuilding, public infrastructure, and skills and livelihood. So we're going to look for Mozambique and all this important progress, mainly on solutions for internally displaced persons with the national ownership and the support from the international actors present in Mozambique. So thank you very much. And thank you everyone, all the panelists, for a very compelling discussion. Sorry we had to rush, but thank you for keeping the time. We are going to open the floor for the questions and interventions, starting with those who, as I said at the beginning, pre-registered to speak. So we will unmute your microphone and video. And again, you're invited to indicate your interest to speak in the chat box. We have some questions already, and please keep your intervention short so we have time for everyone to participate. To begin the interventions from the floor, I am honored to call on Minister Ja Judy of the Ministry of Social Services and Development of Bangsamoro in the Philippines. Thank you very much for being up so late with us. So over to you, Ms. Ja Judy. You're muted. Your microphone is muted. Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear us? Do we have the next speaker ready? So maybe we can come back to Raisa in a minute. Can I give the floor to the UNHCR representative in Jordan, Maria Stavropoulou? Are you in line, Maria?
Yes, can you hear me and see me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you. Thank you. Welcome. Please,
Good.
the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, why am I going to say a few things today? It is I'm going to take you down to memory lane, because you see, I was the, so to speak, the professional assistant to Francis Deng, who was the first special representative of the Secretary General of Internally Displaced Persons. And I was holding the pen on the guiding principle. So I don't know if Mark has managed or will manage to put on screen the historical archives of those times. Let's see if he manages. There we go. So this is a drafting history of the guiding principles on internal displacement. And if we scroll down a bit, I mean, there you have my letters. If we scroll down a bit, you will see the letters of Walter Kalin, and further down of Roberta Cohen. And I would like to mention to pay special tribute to Francis Deng and Roberta Cohen for the remarkable work they did 30 years ago. When I listened to the interventions today from the ministers, from Ugochi Daniels, from the young internally displaced, then I realize how far we have gone in those 30 years. When we started drafting those guiding principles, when this work was being done, we thought these guiding principles would never see the light of day. Because even then, drafting new international instruments was considered as extremely difficult and unlikely to succeed. And yet, because of these enlightened leaders, and I'm talking now about people like Francis Deng and Walter Kalin, who were able to rally experts to bring together the UN agencies, the NGO world around one table, the legal experts. They were able to do that and to persevere and to really make sure that the stars would align for these principles to be drafted, to be agreed upon, and to be essentially endorsed by the different bodies of the United Nations. So for me, it is really heartening, heartwarming, when I hear from Dr. Kanu, for example, and all the other governments, to what extent they have gone to domesticate the guiding principles and to really exercise the principle of sovereignty as responsibility, a principle that was very much articulated and championed by Francis Deng, that we just heard from the UNDP resident representative, how far they have come in really embodying, making reality this principle. So I will leave it at that, but I would really like to thank you for inviting me on this panel today and for taking me 30 years back and giving me the opportunity to reflect on how far we have collectively come. Thank you.
Maria, thank you. This is such a gift that you're giving us. And thank you for honoring the leadership, the work, the vision of Francis Deng, Roberta Cohen, Walter Kaling, yourself, and I would say all the other special
Chaloka.
rapporteurs. Yeah, I was going to say
Yes.
Chaloka, Cecilia.
Cecilia, yourself.
It's a journey of efforts and really impressive work. So thank you for being here
Thank
very
you.
much. It's a gift for all of us in the anniversary of the guiding principles. And I think we're ready to go back to Minister Jajuri of the Social Services and Development of Bangsamoro in the Philippines. Do you hear us? Can you take the floor? We don't see you and we don't hear you. Yes? And someone let me know if she's here. Minister, are you online? Can you unmute her, the administrators, please? Mm. Okay.
We have unmuted her. I believe Minister Jajuri would need to unmute herself on her end, if that's possible. Thank you.
Minister, do you hear us? No, I think we don't have her. So we have a few minutes left, and we have you. No. So I think we have to move on. I would first like to know if there is any of the panelists that are still with us here today that might want to comment on any of the interventions that they heard from other panelists. We would like to see if you have any reactions or comments. It will be nice to listen to you if you take the floor just before giving starting answering the questions. And I don't see hands.
Yeah, there's any
Walter,
questions?
yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I would prefer if there's any questions, so rather than heading.
Okay, thank you, Edo. So I see Walter Kelling's hand. So Walter, you can take the floor, please.
Thank you. Just to give some time to participants to think about further questions, I'd like to build up on what Maria said. And Maria, so many thanks for your intervention. In terms of what the guiding principles really have brought, she mentioned that we didn't think, even dream, that they would become this universal point of reference for issues related to internal displacement and their rights. What was already mentioned is, yes, enshrining the concept of sovereignty as responsibility has been rather new in the context, and I think it has been influencing discussions even beyond the issue of internal displacement. They also kind of are the foundation of recognizing IDPs not as people who are necessarily worse off. I mean, those caught up in the middle of a battle are worse off, but as people who have specific needs, and that we need rights to respond these needs. And without those rights responding to these needs, we will not make progress. Also, and I recall what Wien said, the guiding principles help to empower IDPs. They know they are not just victims, they are not just left behind very often in reality they are left behind, but at least they know that they have rights they can invoke. And finally, there are many UN reforms that have been triggered. Just going back to the humanitarian reform 2005 with the introduction of the cluster system with all its limitations, but it was progress at that time. Now what Ugochi was telling us about of all the follow-up to Piper's work, again, I think the guiding principles, even though they do not directly say what the UN needs to do, they are the foundation for much of what has been done. So in that sense, yes, they are more than just an important legal text. And I think the ultimate strength is, because that's a question I'm often asked, why are they not binding? Exactly because they are not binding, they create a space for discussions. People feel not obliged, but they feel maybe compelled because of the strength of the arguments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. And I think that also covers some reactions that we had in the chat. But I see a new question, a question that was just, I don't have good access here to the chat, but there was a question around, are there opportunities to align the principles with more recent instruments, such as the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities? And I think if you want to go ahead and answer that question, Walter, this relates to what you were just saying.
That's a very good question because it points to a relevant issue, namely, yeah, they are 27 years old, and since then other things have been happening, new conventions, new standards. Of course, there is right now not a question of revising the guiding principles, but because they are non-binding, because they are kind of a framework, they can easily accommodate these new developments. And it's simply about, for instance, interpreting, understanding the guiding principles in light of the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability, but also the other way around. And of course, when we are looking at monitoring mechanisms, there's no UN committee on the guiding principles, but there is a UN committee on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And I think bringing cases to that committee of IDPs who with a disability, and then encouraging the committee on the rights of persons with disabilities to apply their convention also in light of the guiding principles. That's the way to go, and it's the way to go with other conventions, rights, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and so on and so on. So this kind of interaction between the different instruments, that's really the way to go, and use the guiding principles then to trigger judicial action also at domestic levels. Your country, of course, Paula is the big shining example, Colombia, but in many other countries, much more could be done by people bringing cases relating to internal displacement to their courts, and for courts then to develop in light again and in implication and being inspired by the guiding principles, important legal protection, and it's the same for the regional human rights courts and the UN treaty bodies.
Thank you, Walter, as always, very clear and enlightening. We have some comments in the chat. I encourage you to read them, and some we posted important information, the Global Report on Law and Policy, that highlights worldwide experiences on the progress made here. Comments by former also Special Rapporteur Chaloka Villani on participation of IDPs and different discussions and progress around that since 2018 and more. I just want to try once more to listen to Minister Jajuri, because it's the Philippines, it's this other side of the world, and I wouldn't want to miss your voice here today. if you're here, please try to open your mic and speak one last time. If not, we are going to go to the closing remarks. So, Minister Jayuri, are you here? Can you hear me? No. Mm-mm. I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah, you're there. Can you unmute your microphone, please? Because we already unmuted you here, but no. No, so sorry for everyone that we missed this important voice. But we have some information in the chat about the Philippines and the rights of IDPs of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, an act of 2024 that was recently passed. Meanwhile, we're preparing for the IDP bill to be ratified once the 20th Congress opens. So yeah, good news as well from the Philippines, and in another occasion, we'll have the voice of the minister. Thank you very much for trying. So I think we need to move on to be in time for the closing hour that we promised. So I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Jennifer Welsh, as I mentioned at the beginning, former special advisor to the UN Secretary General on responsibility to protect and director of a very important partner of the mandate, the McGill University School of Public Policy. So Dr. Welsh, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me and inviting me to give these closing remarks. I just want to begin by thanking all of the speakers. As was said earlier, I think those who framed and advocated for the guiding principles could never have imagined the degree to which they would take hold and inspire the kind of work that we have heard about. So all of the voices we've heard today, those that work in the UN system, including, of course, our moderator, Paula, who's been such a tireless champion of the rights of IDPs, but also IDP leaders themselves, and also those who are working in national and regional governments. What I think this highlights, and this was an important theme that came out of the discussion, is this idea of collective resolve and collective responsibility. That this is not the time to give up in face of challenges, but to redouble our efforts, and that this is a collective exercise. There's a collective responsibility to protect and assist IDPs, and that responsibility includes prevention. I'm so glad that we heard that theme highlighted today about the need to never forget the energy that's required and needed to prevent arbitrary displacement. And I'm sure IDP leaders who are on the line and all those of you who have registered would agree with that. We at McGill University, the Max Bell School of Public Policy and the Institute for Development, we're so thrilled to be able to play our role, the little role that we can play, and that is to convene and to bring research to bear. And so what we've tried to do in collaboration with the Special Rapporteur is lean into this idea of participation, to bring this back to IDPs themselves. And you know what our work together in December, and now you will see the publication of our report, Strengthening the Participation of Internally Displaced Peoples, which is now available. What you will see in there is that we tried to learn from diverse experiences of displacement about what makes participation meaningful, not just a box checking exercise. What makes it meaningful, but also, and this is important, what are the factors that shape it, including among very diverse communities. And we heard from Nestor about the specific challenges facing certain communities. We also shared views and experiences on the different mechanisms for participation. There are many examples we can now learn from, whether it's Ukraine or Nigeria, And this is really important to begin to share that knowledge. We also heard about, and I think this is important to maybe close with, we heard about not just the benefits of participation. Of course, participation of IDPs makes sense. It's the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. It makes our responses effective, but it can also be costly and difficult for IDPs themselves. They take risks when they come to the table, when they come to invited spaces, or when they create their own spaces, which is so important. It's not always easy. They can face security risks, personal risks, and then they also need to be accountable back to their own communities for what they've achieved. And so I hope that we, as we move forward with our learnings from participation, can remember how important it is to support IDPs as they participate, and to be accountable for what we achieve together. I'm so heartened by this meeting today. It's left me energetic. I'm so grateful for all of you who have come on the line to participate, to listen, to share. We have an incredible community to exercise this collective responsibility to protect and assist IDPs. And of course, we're blessed with the leadership and the energy of our special rapporteur, Paula Gaviria Betancourt. So thanks to all of you, and I turn back to her for a very last word.
Jennifer, thank you so much for summarizing our discussion so concisely with a focus on collective responsibility to protect and prevent. IDP participation, as you say, is the right thing to do, but we need to understand the risks and costs that internally displaced persons face. So as we close this event, I would like to thank our panelists. Thank you, Jennifer, for being with us today. Thank also to the interpreters that made it possible. Sorry for the inconvenience at the beginning. And as you say, I reiterate the special thanks to all the internally displaced persons that participated, that were listening. Thank you for the work that you do. You are not alone. We are now inspired, as Jennifer said it. Challenges make us stronger to work collectively and support you in the work that you do, support the governments, so the dignity of the displaced persons is a reality. So thank you, everyone, and I wish you all a very good day or evening. Goodbye.